Start forwarding all the way. Right. Good evening. Welcome to the extraordinary meeting of the Environment and Services Committee on the 21st of May 2025. So a very, very short agenda, being brought about by a very short time frame to make a decision on the key item of the evening. So that's item 1 done, the welcome. Apologies for absence.
So we have apologies from Councillor Jill Taylor, who's substituted by Councillor Louise Band, and from Councillor Lee Harmsworth.
Thank you very much. Do I need to do a vote on that? Yeah. All those in favour of accepting the apologies, please. Right, I'll propose them. Ryan seconding, Councillor Hope seconding. All those in favour? Very much. It's unanimous. Have we been pre-notified of any declarations of interest? Oh. Go for it, Councillor Hope.
Chair, just for total transparency, I will declare that I have been a Rotarian in the previous life. And I do socialise with a few Rotarians, including and was recently invited to their president's dinner. That is a non-pecuniary interest, but just in the matter of openness and transparency.
Cool. Thank you very much, Councillor Hope. Any others? Councillor O'Leary.
I also socialise with some of the Rotarians, but I've never been a member.
Thank you very much. Right, at this point then, we'll move on to item 4, Cove Street toilets. As it's an extraordinary meeting, apparently I shall be introducing. So, change of form here. As you all know, this came out of a public question, or councillor question, and a public question at the recent full council. The reason for it being an extraordinary sort of an emergency meeting, as it were, is because of the timeframes involved. So, this is a case of talking about the Cove Street toilets and basically considering whether we want to make those free for the Fair in Square, which is imminent, and the Wessex Folk Festival happening in the near future as well. So hopefully everyone's read the report. The recommendations, are they up on screen? The recommendation is it's in 2 parts. A, agree to allow free access to the toilets for both events, which will be 4 days in total. And B, ask that officers prepare a report for a future E&S committee meeting detailing a proposed policy for the area. So we've got 2 separate things there. We've got the immediacy of the decision for the 2 upcoming events, and then the longer term thinking on where we might take this, moving forward. So you've got the background information now. I'm not going to read it out because it's very brief and I'm sure everyone's had a chance to look at that and is aware of the background. So we'll take it straight to any discussion. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you as well for calling this extraordinary meeting following my question at last week's full council. I'd just like to urge members of the committee this evening to vote in favour of both recommendations. As I said last week in my councillor question, this hits several priorities for this town council under its new strategic priorities for the corporate strategy of 2004 to 2029, mainly to make Weymouth a prosperous town where all year events and activities bring visitors and increase economic opportunities. I really believe both of these events do that. They're solely run by volunteers. They've been put on for the good of this town with the money raised at these events going back into the local community. And I think this is a really good news story if the council will support these events by waiving the charges of these toilets for this event. Obviously ongoing, when we get to that discussion later on in the year, I do believe that we probably should have a flat charging rate for events, similar to our events policy. Talking from experience with the Weymouth Beach Motocross, we pay a flat charge for the land hire and the facilities, which also include toilets. So there's already precedent set for those charges with those policies going forward, and I think that should be an easy discussion when we discuss that later on. But for now, I really urge the committee to support the recommendations, Chair, and when it comes to it, I'm happy to propose the recommendations. I've also been asked just to make a note from Councillor Claire Williams, who's one of the ward councillors. She spoke to me following my question, and I know that she has emailed members of this committee to urge you also to support this It's a great event in her ward, and like I say, I believe both the Wayne Rotary Club and the organisers of the Folk Festival deserve our support this year, and then we can obviously have 12 months discussions with them for future plans.
Thank you very much, councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, I've got a statement from councillor Williams, who's in Spain. Third of the council meeting, I'd like to offer my full support for the hopes where public toilets have been free of charge for large charity events. As one of the councillors for Rodwell, I'm aware that South Harbour side has seen a lot of antisocial behaviour, people urinating in doorways and alleyways while the public toilets were refurbished. I'm sure none of my fellow councillors want to see more of this kind of behaviour happening at a family event. So if councillor is happy to propose, I'd be happy to second.
Councillor Wade.
I was going to propose that we accept both parts of the recommendation, so I'm happy to second or whatever, I don't mind.
Louis,
Yeah,
beat it.
Louis.
I'm happy to defer as a ward member.
But I'm a DC ward member, not a town member.
So deputy.
Oh, thank you, sir. I just wondered, it doesn't have to go to finance and governance for this, does it?
No, because it's a service and it's related to our services, we don't see that.
And councillor Tom.
Thank you. I think I may be a lone voice of dissent in the room, but I was on the toilet working party group and we deliberated long and hard about charging for toilets. And the reason it was done is because Cove Street was in a particular bad state, but when things aren't nice, people abuse them. They just think that, you know. And also when people have had too much to drink, they tend to abuse things. And I can't see how somebody can afford to buy a couple of pints of beer and can't afford to pay 50p for a toilet. Now, we always used to pay for toilets. In fact, in this town, we paid for toilets. And not long ago, the Bond Street toilets had a money in the slot. We were never asked to make them free. What has changed now? I don't think 50p is unreasonable if it keeps our toilets clean. And I think we're setting the precedent here because the plan, to my understanding, is we're going to roll out pay-as-you-go toilets across the whole town with each refurbishment. So if we say here we're going to have free toilets for an event, every other event that comes along in other parts of the town that's a charity event, are we going to say, yeah, we're going to do that? If we do go ahead and vote for it tonight, my only condition would be that if we get a report back that the toilets have been abused, then we don't go ahead with it, because that's the whole point of having nice toilets you pay for, is that people respect them and they stay nice, and it doesn't cost the council money to repair vandalism. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just, so before I bring councillor O'Leary, I think with recommendation, it's quite broad, quite deliberate. So it may be that officers report back on what the actual costs were of us doing this, potential damage, hopefully there's none, but you know, I'd expect all of that to be in those discussions and reports moving forward and getting more from the side here. So all of those things are there. Another thing that's I've heard discussed, and I think my initial thought for seeing the details would be quite positive stuff, is we currently have the scheme for the free parking, where different organisations can apply for the five free parking days, I believe it is. So maybe we consider a system like that. All of these things are open at this stage, but it's just to give that instruction to the officers to move forward with that way of thinking. Maybe we don't go that way, but it's open to numerous interpretations from the officers that's giving them that time to go away and do that work. Councillor O'Leary.
Coming on from what councillor Toff said, which was, very sensible, but I do take a disagreement in regard to toilet charge, and I think overall, people pay their precept, and then we then charge them once again to use a facility that they already paid for in their precept. I understand that a lot of it's used by tourists, but we don't pay people to use play parks, they get vandalised. We don't charge people to use, Cromwell Country Park or other, Greenhill Gardens or other parks we spend money on and could get vandalised. So we're not a business. We are here to provide a service at the end of the day that people pay for via their precept. So I'm a bit skeptical about charges. I know it's income generation, but we do generate income primarily through taxation, which is what's expected.
Ryan first, then Kate.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I forgot to say during my previous one of the reasons I requested this, and it might allude to thanks to Toffs, concern as well, is that basically any event that's serving alcohol has an obligation under the health and safety regulations to provide free toilets. And this event, both organisers sell alcohol at the event. And this is supported by the purple guide, which event organisers use, which basically give you a level of toilet provision compared to attendance. So that's the reason I'm saying that if we don't supply these toilets free of charge, they would have to outsource this, costing the charity a lot of money to bring in portaloos, which aren't pleasant, don't get maintained, or a big toilet block, which again, then take away from the money that they raise for charity. Last year, I think it was around £23,000 Spain Rotary raised at this event. So again, I would urge it's the right thing to do to support the charity and help them comply with health and safety regulations.
Thank you. Councillor Owen.
It may be that we decide that I still think we can take both part A and B together. What we're doing in A is covering for these two events this year, and that's money that these two events perhaps haven't factored in because the toilets are so new. Going forward, there are various ways the free events, the basic charge to cover, all sorts of ways we can do that, and we've got time to look sensibly at the various options and decide on a policy without a knee-jerk reaction, and that would be the way to go forward. What we might do, and I understand your reservations absolutely, what we might do is have a word with the Rotarians and the people organising the folk festival in the meantime. We've got lots of volunteers. It may be possible to position someone just to keep an eye, so that if there is the potential for vandalism or misuse, it's circumvented, and that would it. Yes.
Assistant Town Clerk's asked to comment.
Just for information for these two events, because we're expecting high footfall to the area, and we are going to have an attendant at the toilets over the period of both weekends. So that if there are any, and especially where they're new, so any issues do occur, there is something fine.
Excellent. What's the difference?
Forgive me, who came up with the idea of, 50 pence? To my mind, that's quite excessive. It sort of knocks on the head spending a penny, doesn't it? And quite frankly, most ladies, will probably spend the 50p, but let's face it, most men would think no, and then where are they going to go? So
Process that.
So this evening, we're not here to talk about this 50p charge. However, this has been before committee before, and I can circulate afterwards the resolution from that committee that had been previously agreed.
I'm sorry.
Just to add to that, the fees and charges can be brought before this committee at any point and be reviewed. And that includes the toilet charges. So if members feel on the review that, it could come forward and be requested at any point, fees and charges.
I'm wondering.
That's right.
New cemeteries.
It's the new thing.
Could we please clarify there's slight different people either side of me? Is there or isn't there precedent that might have a problem in terms of other users of other events? Would be my concern if we're creating a precedent for others to then demand it from us.
With regards to toilets where we charge, Hope Square and Swanley toilets, we both charge at both facilities 50 pence. There are no major events that take part that are planned for Swanley car park this year, and these are two major events in the Hope Square area, South Harbour side. So I don't feel there's any other events that may potentially prevent organisers that could potentially be unhappy about this year.
Very much. Right, we have a proposer. It was Councillor Hope. Did you cede your seconding position?
No.
Oh, second.
We're sticking with Councillor O'Leary seconding. I think.
Sorry, who was the Councillor O'Leary seconded?
Councillor Hope. So I think at this stage we'll move to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? And that should mean no abstentions. Okay, thank you very much. So that is carried. And that ends the meeting. Thank you.
That's why this is like you said.
You said.
No, it's warm.